over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Tons and tons of great stuff being done by our cast of writers over there, getting everybody together to preview all of these March Madness games for us, all the first-round games Thursday, Friday. Then we'll do the second-round games Saturday and Sunday. Of course, then we're off until Thursday with the Sweet 16 on Thursday and Friday. But we'll have a lot of great content for you next week on Bang the Book Radio, including some thoughts on the NIT, CBI, CIT, and, of course, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, all that type of stuff. But also over there in print form, or I guess in virtual print form, my 30 MLB season win total previews. Also, I did my National League East MLB betting tips and players to watch for the 5 teams there in the senior circuit. So you check both of those out over at BangTheBook.com as well. You can get my guide on Amazon as a Kindle ebook or right on the homepage at BangTheBook.com. You can download the PDF. Certainly we'd appreciate it if you support the site by downloading that guide over on Amazon. But, if you just want the PDF, that's perfectly fine too. And if you don't have a Kindle or a Fire or anything like that, you can still get apps on your Android or iPhone that would be Kindle accessible to check out that MLB betting guide. Very proud of what we put together here this year. Yes, I know for those that downloaded it early, the Cubs and the White Sox are flipped by league. The Cubs, unfortunately, in the AL Central, the White Sox in the NL Central. Formatting company did fix that. So if you download automatic, or if you turn on automatic updates for Kindle, it should download the updated version for you. If you're somebody who downloaded it a little bit later, you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, and that's perfectly fine. As you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB200 is that promo code, 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook, 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. And, of course, as you know, Kyle Hunter's daily college basketball picks, Parker Michaels' daily NHL picks, lots of great stuff going on over at BangTheBook.com, so make sure that you check all of it out. All right, let's take a look here at the National League Central, and I'll probably put something together tomorrow on the National League West as we're just 1 week away from opening day for 28 teams. Mariners already 2-0, A's already 0-2, which is a bummer for my favorite season win total pick here, but not worried about the A's at all. Just a very unique atmosphere, a very unique environment over there in Japan. But the 5 teams here in the National League Central, all very, very interesting. All pretty damn good, too. I mean, this is a league where the lowest season win total, the Pittsburgh Pirates at 77.5. Really can't say that about any other division here in Major League Baseball for this season. So the Central looks to be very, very competitive. Will be a division I talk about a lot on the Bettor's Box here as we go throughout the spring and summer. But we'll go in alphabetical order once again here, beginning with the Chicago Cubs. 95-68 last year. They lost game 163 to the Brewers, then went on to lose the wild card game to the Rockies. Their season win total, 88.5. I had a listener question maybe a month or so ago about the Cubs' PECOTA projection and just how low it was in the 80 and 82 range, also seeing them at 79 and 83. And, we saw a very significant update over at Fangraphs a couple of days ago. They've added catcher framing metrics to the WAR calculations for catchers and have sort of factored that more into the equation. And what we're finding is that catcher framing is a really, really big deal. And based on the findings that have been done by a lot of very, very smart people in the baseball community, it's something that matters. It's something that is quite significant. And I talked about that when I answered the Monday mailbag question regarding the Cubs' PECOTA projection about Wilson Contreras and about the fact that Wilson Contreras is a very bad pitch framer. So that was definitely factored into the equation over at PECOTA and over at Baseball Prospectus. Now, furthermore, the Cubs have some big concerns with their starting staff. Last year they were third in, this is overall as a pitching staff, the Cubs were third in ERA, third in left on base percentage, but they were 18th in FIP and 22nd in XFIP. So a lot of their guys, lower ERAs, higher FIPs, higher XFIPs, more often than not, you're going to see regression from those guys. Now, you look at John Lester, for example, he's probably the poster boy of this. 3.32 ERA, 4.39 FIP, 4.43 XFIP, 80.3% left on base percentage with a low strikeout rate. If you're a guy that misses a lot of bats, you can carry a high left on base percentage. If you don't, it's much, much harder. Unless you're elite from a contact management standpoint, it is very, very difficult for you to strand a lot of runners. Lester, okay in the contact management department, not nearly as good as you would expect a guy with an 80.3% left on base percentage and a 3.32 ERA with a 4.39 FIP to be. So Lester is a regression candidate. Jose Quintana the last 2 years, back-to-back years with FIPs over 4, last year 4.43. That's not great. Kyle Hendricks is still going to carry a low ERA, high xFIP because of the nature in which he pitches. And he's a guy that I think we've just kind of come to terms with the fact that his command is so good that he's going to be one of those guys that perennially will outpitch his advanced metrics. And it is hard to get to that point with guys that you can trust to post low ERAs with higher FIPs and higher xFIPs. But a guy like Kyle Hendricks, definitely one that stands out. But overall, a lot of guys from last year's Cubs pitching staff, and you can go through and look, go over to FanGraphs, look at their pitching stats page. A lot of guys with ERAs lower than their FIPs and xFIPs. So this is a team that has a lot of regression potential, particularly on the pitching side, and particularly because of Wilson Contreras and his poor pitch framing metrics. So that's why people have soured on the Cubs. I've soured on the Cubs. I like their season win total under 88.5. That's not to say I think they'll be a team with a losing record like PECOTA is suggesting, but something in the 85, 86 range for the Cubs would not surprise me at all for the 2019 season. Now, also look at the Cubs offensively, 4th in batting average, 4th in on-base percentage, both very good, but 13th in percentage. They were about league average in weighted runs created plus, 10th in weighted on-base average. They only had 3 guys with 20 or more home runs, only 1 guy with 30. That was Javier Baez, and with his free-swinging nature, you sort of wonder if that's sustainable or not. But that's a big problem for the Cubs here. When you talk about the current state of Major League Baseball, teams are a little bit less dependent on the home run than they were 2 years ago, but it's still a major driving force for run scoring. So because this is such a strikeout-heavy atmosphere and a strikeout-heavy environment, having a good batting average and a good OBP is only half the battle. You've got to hit for power to drive those runs in. The Cubs didn't do enough of that last season, and when you look at the projections for them, the offense is expected to stay about the same, but the pitching staff expected to drop off in a big way. So that's why there's a lot of skepticism and, quite frankly, a lot of pessimism about the Cubs here in the sabermetric community. Again, with people that view baseball in a more traditional sense, they're still going to recognize a lot of names on this team, and they're going to give the Cubs the benefit of the doubt. But if you look at some of the deeper metrics for this team, there are a lot of reasons to be concerned. We'll see how that plays out on a game-by-game. If I had to take the Cubs win total, I'd go under. It's not my favorite win total here in the division, but there certainly are a lot of concerns about the team there on the north side in Wrigleyville. We move on to the Cincinnati Reds here, 67-95 last year. Their 4th straight season with 94 or more losses. And that's what makes their season win total so fascinating here this year, is that their season win total is sitting at 79.5. So they have to be 13 games better than last year. Again, a team that's lost 94 games 4 consecutive seasons with a season win total basically right around 500. And this is a Reds team that had lots of movement in the offseason. They picked up Sonny Gray, picked up Tanner Roark, Alex Wood, Yasiel Puig, Matt Kemp, Derek Dietrich, Zach Duke, Jose Iglesias. This rotation is much better, and the depth is far superior to what they had last season. And furthermore, Jesse Winker's already there, but Nick Senzel will be there soon. Taylor Trammell will be there soon. Joey Votto said that this offseason he really dedicated to looking to replace his lost power from last year. So there's a lot of positives with this Reds team. There's a lot of reasons to see why people are optimistic about this team. They basically overhauled the entire back end of the rotation. They've overhauled the lineup and the bench, and they've got some significant reinforcements coming from down below at some point here this season. Also, Luis Castillo last year, 341 WOBA allowed in the first half, 268 WOBA against in the second half, cut his slugging percentage against by 111 points, big spike in strikeout percentage. Castillo is the closest thing that the Reds have to a frontline ace starting pitcher. At his peak, he's probably a number 2, but because he was so much better in the second half last year, he's a guy garnering a lot of steam out there from a fantasy standpoint and also from a betting market standpoint in terms of guys that are isolated to, get a lot of line movement. And, I had a listener question regarding my MLB picks and tips piece, or a reader question, I should say, about my MLB picks and tips piece and if I've tracked my closing line value. And no, I haven't, but regular listeners of the Bettor's Box know that I can tell you pretty much in 90% of the games, 95% of the games even, which way the line is going to move. And a clear telltale sign is when you get a pitcher with a high ERA and a low xFIP. Well, last year that was Luis Castillo. And over the course of the season, that ERA did gradually regress towards his xFIP. And anytime you get a guy with a high ERA and a low xFIP, Nick Pivetta, a clear example of this here for the upcoming season, you're going to get people that want to back that guy. So if you want to play Luis Castillo in Reds games here this year, play the overnight lines and then decide later in the day on game day if you want to buy off of it, play a little bit of arbitrage, or if you want to hold that position with your closing line value. Because Luis Castillo going to be one of those guys that takes a lot of action, especially early on in the year, with people looking to back him, expecting his ERA to continue to regress towards his FIP and xFIP. So definitely something you want to factor in the equation here. People will bet against John Lester early. People will bet on Luis Castillo, and you can see the reasons why. Because you see those FIP, ERA, and xFIP discrepancies, that's very important for you to keep in mind here. Something you definitely want to follow with the Cincinnati Reds. Now, the Reds, though, look, I mean, I get it. Again, their personnel is so much better this year. They played a lot better under Jim Riggleman than they did against Brian Price. And also, there are some reasons to believe that they just naturally see some positive regression. They were 10-29 in one-run games last year, which is really, really bad. Fewest number of wins in one-run games last season. That should regress positively a little bit. A lot of times teams anywhere from, +6 to -6 in one-run game record. A lot of teams will fall around 500 in that department. The Reds, obviously, well below 500 at 10-29. So this is a positive regression candidate, but with the strength of this division, with the historical results here for the Reds over the last few years, I have a very hard time taking this team to win at least 80 games in this division. I think the under does have some equity, but I do think they will be a much better team. I think they'll be a much more competitive team. And also, again, we'll see where they are come, the summer months, but with Senzel and Trammell likely coming up, nice little shot in the arm for them. Who knows? Maybe they could be a little bit of a dark horse contender here in the Central, but there is a dark horse contender I do like more than them. We move on to the Milwaukee Brewers here, 96-67 last year. One game, 163 over Chicago, won the division, got within one game of making it to the World Series. Their season win total here, 86.5. And this is a fascinating team for me. As somebody who studies the game from a sabermetric standpoint, the Brewers don't make sense. They have a lot of starting pitchers that are very pedestrian, very low strikeout rates, but guys that annually post a lower ERA than FIP and xFIP. So you would expect that guys like that would regress. And even last year, when you look at the starters, a 0.40 difference between ERA and FIP, one of the biggest in baseball. So hardline sabermetricians do not like this team at all. We saw their season win total market climb a little bit here this year, up from, I believe, 84.5 to 86.5. And that's a little bit scary for me because the quant community is not behind this team. And you try not to go against the quant community as much as possible, but also I feel like I've had a better frame of mind with the Brewers than a lot of people out there because a lot of sabermetricians and a lot of modelers are very hardline. There's not much gray area. Everything is black. Everything is white. Well, I incorporate a lot more gray area into my handicapping, into my evaluation, because there are a lot of things that these metrics simply can't account for. And one of the things that the Brewers have done very, very well here over the last few seasons is contact management. Their starting pitchers are in the top 50 in average exit velocity against. You can't get hurt as badly if guys aren't making solid contact. So that's the approach that the Brewers have taken here, and it's worked out extremely well for them. Now, yes, they have an elite-level bullpen, and they've got a pretty decent offense as well, but these starters have been able to get by because they've got good command, and they're able to follow the pitching plans that are laid out for them by the front office and the analysts that are there at Miller Park. This is just what the Brewers have done. And this is this is something, I don't know why it's taken so long for this to happen. I mean, scouting reports have been around forever. But what the Brewers are doing essentially is they've gone very cutter heavy because cutters slide off the barrel of the bat. You think you've squared up a cutter, all of a sudden it gets in on the handle, you get jammed, you roll over weakly on the infield or hit some weak-ass fly ball. And the Brewers have really made their hay with that by using cutters in areas where hitters traditionally don't carry a high slugging percentage. So they've had a lot of success with that, and it's been a sustainable thing over the last 2.5 years. Now, does the magic run out this year? I don't know. I will not be playing the Brewers over 86.5. I think it's just too high for comfort. But what I can tell you is that a lot of teams are starting to capitalize on this former inefficiency. A lot of teams are starting to look a lot more at contact management, at changing around pitcher arsenals. You look at the Yankees, for example, their ballpark is a little league field. Well, what did they do to try and counteract it? They told their starters to stop throwing their fastballs as much. CC Sabathia has basically reinvented himself by throwing 35% sliders. Patrick Corbin, another guy, 40% slider usage. All of a sudden, he becomes an ace with an elite level K rate. Teams are actively making these arsenal changes for their pitchers. The Brewers have done it with theirs across the whole staff. It's allowed them to have a lot of success in terms of limiting hard contact. So you'll see a lot of these Brewers starters get faded. You'll see a lot of people trying to go against the Brewers saying, well, this can't continue. Well, maybe it can because of what they're doing, because they're changing things. Baseball is all about the rush to find the next inefficiency. We talked about the Tampa Bay Rays a few weeks ago and about how they're hitting balls on the ground. They're going against the shift. They're going opposite field. They're looking to get a lot of traffic on base and see what happens from that, while other teams are trying to hit a bunch of fly balls. Well, ground balls go for hits more often than fly balls. Yes, fly balls go for doubles and home runs more than ground balls, which is sort of the give and take of the Rays strategy. But teams are always looking for that next inefficiency. They're always looking for that thing that they can do better than somebody else or that they can find faster than somebody else. The Brewers, by utilizing these contact management techniques, have had a lot of success, and we'll see if it ends. But the thing is, for the Brewers, Corbin Burnes, Brandon Woodruff, they've got some higher upside starters coming up through the system right now that they get Jimmy Nelson back this year that also allow them to not only keep doing what they've been doing, but do so with a higher talent level, a higher chance of striking out some hitters here and there. So the Brewers are in a really, really good position. And offensively, they've got Christian Yelich, the reigning MVP. Jesus Aguilar and Travis Shaw both hit 30 dingers. Lorenzo Cain with a .395 on-base percentage. Yasmani Grandal, elite-level pitch framer, good batter at the catcher position as well. They've got a lot of things to like here. What ironically enough concerns me about the Brewers is the bullpen. You go to Corbin Burnes and Brandon Woodruff and Freddie Peralta in the rotation maybe, you're taking away some of the bridge guys in this bullpen. Jeremy Jeffress, slowed by an injury in spring training. I think that they've just burned him out the last couple of years. If they get Craig Kimbrell, my concerns melt away. And they have been in talks with Craig Kimbrell. Great Jeffress insurance policy. Good insurance policy for Corey Knebel as well. And, of course, they've got Josh Hader, who's the best left-handed reliever in all of baseball. So the Brewers are still going to be very good. I love what they're doing. I love what they continue to do. They've got some more pure talent and athleticism coming up through the system now from drafting and developing well. So there's more staying power than people think with this Brewers team. And again, I don't think a whole lot changes for them here this year. I still expect them to be good, maybe not as good as last year. But their season win total 86.5. Not a play I like necessarily, but again, I will not be rushing to fade this team like a lot of metrics-heavy handicappers will be. The Pittsburgh Pirates, 82-79 last year. Season win total here this year, 77.5. This is my NL Central dark horse. This is my Cincinnati Reds. I really like this team. Jameson Taillon had elite numbers once he picked up that slider in late May and started throwing it a whole lot. I like Joe Musgrove. He's got some contact management skills. Same thing with Trevor Williams. Very low exit velocities against for those two guys. Chris Archer, we all know what he's capable of. Hopefully he can actually pitch to his FIP and XFIP. I mentioned guys that carry a low ERA with a high FIP and a high XFIP over a long period of time, and sometimes you just have to accept that that's the reality. for Chris Archer, every year, he's kind of like Pineda, where his ERA is higher than his FIP and XFIP. One of these years, I hope that he pitches to his true talent level. It's very hard when you're a two-pitch pitcher, primarily just a fastball slider guy like he is. But maybe the Pirates can do something different. And also, PNC Park, kind of on par with Tropicana Field, I would say, but certainly getting away from the road AL East parks, Toronto, Boston, New York, 3 of the top 5 parks for weighted on base average in terms of fly balls and line drives last year. That can only help Archer in the long run. So I like this rotation. You've got Nick Kingham coming soon. You've got Mitch Keller. I think Jordan Lyles eventually winds up in relief, but he's a passable starter. PNC Park, a well-defined advantage for weaker offenses, for a weaker offensive team here in the Pirates. But, even then, the Pirates' offense could be a little bit better this year. Young-Ho Gong is back. He's going to be the starting third baseman. Francisco Cervelli is a very good offensive catcher. Starling Marte is a good player. Gregory Polanco is still out, so that's a little bit of a concern. Hopefully he gets back soon. But the Pirates have some guys that – one of the things about this Pirates team, they put a lot of balls in play. They kind of adopt the Rays strategy of as long as we don't strike out, we have a chance. And the Pirates do that here with a lot of guys that put balls in play. They do not have a lot of high strikeout hitters in this lineup. So that could create some interesting betting opportunities for us as the season goes along here against guys that are really reliant on strikeouts. They're not going to strike out a lot. So they could be a good underdog play against some of those elite level starters that, rely on the swing and miss. But ultimately, what I love the most about this Pirates team, and I do like the starting staff, I think the lineup is okay. The bullpen is elite. This may end up being the best bullpen in baseball when all is said and done here this year. Felipe Vasquez, Kyle Crick, Richard Rodriguez, Edgar Santana. They got a bunch of guys there in this bullpen that are very, very strong. And I think ultimately Jordan Lyles ends up in relief. Bullpen arms for days here with this Pirates team. And again, you talk about the changing landscape of Major League Baseball, and another reason why the Brewers have been so effective because they can five and fly with their starters and let the bullpen take care of business. The Pirates can do the same thing here if they want to, because they have that level of depth in the bullpen. So love the Pirates over 77.5. I think the Pirates as a dark horse to win this division and win the NL pennant makes some sense. This is one of my favorite National League season win totals with the Pirates over 77.5. Finally, one more team to talk about here is the St. Louis Cardinals. Season win total 88.5. They were 88-74 last year. You always have concerns about the Cardinals because from a health standpoint, it's one thing or another. Carlos Martinez already hurt. Michael Wacha's never healthy. Adam Wainwright's always hit or miss. But this is a team that has a very high floor and a relatively high ceiling because they have so many good players. Miles Mikolas, yes, he's a little bit of a regression candidate, but I wouldn't expect him to fall off. Jack Flaherty's a Cy Young dark horse for me. They've got Austin Gomber, Dakota Hudson, Alex Reyes. They've got Daniel Ponce de Leon. They've got a lot of guys that are right there on the fringes of being major league starting pitchers. Looks like Hudson's going to be in the bullpen, probably be their primary setup guy. But this is a Cardinals team that just has so many options, so many weapons, so many really good players. And it's one of those things, too, where offensively, it's the same thing. They now have a star in Paul Goldschmidt, which could really help them, obviously. But Matt Carpenter's a good player. Marcelo Zuna's a good player. Paul DeJong is a good player. Dexter Fowler, if he's healthy and comes back, he's a good player. Colton Wong, good player. Harrison Bader, good player. They've got a lot of guys where there aren't many weaknesses with this lineup, with this team. Yadier Molina, of course, very good player. They are trotting out guys that are average or better at every position on the field. And that's huge because a lot of teams don't have that luxury. A lot of teams will have to trot guys out there that aren't very good hitters, aren't very good defenders, the glove first, no bat kinds of guys. The Cardinals don't have that. A lot of their guys are good offensive players and pretty good defensive players as well. So that's why this is a team with such a high season win total. Again, very high floor. Not sure what the ceiling looks like with all the pitching injuries and things of that sort. But, Marcelo Zuna, big second half last year with a 364 WOBA. Now he's got Paul Goldschmidt in the lineup. Goldschmidt gets away from that humidor at Chase Field. He's a guy playing for a contract here as well, and contract year guys sometimes do get a nice little boost. Matt Carpenter had that big bounce back year last year. So the Cardinals are a very interesting team for a variety of different reasons. And again, I think with them, what's kind of attractive is that their range of potential results for the full season is much smaller than a lot of the other teams here. If the Brewers are really good again, sure, they could win the division. But if things regress for them from a pitching standpoint, maybe they win 82 or 83 games. I could conceivably see a 10-game spread for the Brewers. I could conceivably see a 10-game spread for the Cubs. Same thing for the Reds. And realistically, even though I like the Pirates, same thing for them. I feel like that window of expectation for the Cardinals is much, much smaller. They are probably the most trustworthy team in this division because they don't have many clear flaws. Jordan Hicks was very good in the second half. You've got Andrew Miller. We'll see what he still is. But they've got so many starting arms, like even a John Gant, that they can put out there in the bullpen that they can figure it out. They have enough options to figure it out without having to go out there and make some kind of trade or, sign Kimbrel or something like that. Although Craig Kimbrel would be a nice fit for St. Louis. But again, this is the team that has the smallest range of potential outcomes. And there's something to be said about that in a season win total market with a team that you think you can trust. So, and the NL Central is fascinating to me. I like all 5 of these teams in different ways. Should be the most competitive division in all of baseball here this year. But again, overall, I think the Pirates, probably my favorite season win total over. And, I think the Cubs under is something that could be a worthwhile investment. Also, I think the Reds, just because, somebody has to lose games here. And I would think it would be the Reds over the Pirates. But again, very strong division top to bottom. One I definitely enjoyed talking about. And one I will write about tomorrow at BangTheBook.com with my MLB betting tips and players to watch. Then also do a quick one-off here to talk about the National League West tomorrow on Bang the Book Radio. Finally, last thing I want to mention here, NCAA tournament starting today. Obviously, it's already underway for those listening to this show. A lot going on Friday and Saturday and Sunday in college basketball. PropSwap.com/BTB. You definitely want to check this out, especially if you're holding some futures tickets where you don't like the draw going forward. You're a little bit concerned about maybe an injury situation that's kind of out there, something like that. You can sell those futures tickets over on PropSwap, or you can be a buyer in 12 different states. So PropSwap.com/BTB, even if it's not college basketball, NBA, NHL futures, Major League Baseball futures, some NFL props and futures out there already as well. So again, PropSwap.com/BTB, a marketplace for your futures and props tickets.